What a beautiful day to worship. Northview, we are so glad that you're joining us online. Let's worship our Father. It's your heart we're searching for. We want you and nothing more. Let your glory fill this place. We're alive in your presence. It's your heart we're searching for. We want you and nothing more. Let your glory fill this place. We're alive in your presence. We surrender all to you. Do what you want to, do what you want to. God, we long to see you move. Do what you want to, do what you want to. We are standing in your light, and our hearts are open wide. Let us see more than before. Lord, come have your way here. We surrender all to you. Do what you want to, do what you want to. God, we long to see you move. Do what you want to, do what you want to. All-consuming fire fall on us. 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 We surrender all to you. Do what you want to, do what you want to. God, we long to see you move. Do what you want to, do what you want to. We surrender all to you. Do what you want to, do what you want to. God, we long to see you move. Do what you want to, do what you want to. All-consuming fire fall on us. All-consuming fire fall on us. All-consuming fire fall on us. All-consuming fire fall on us.
Well, hey, church, it is so good to see you, so good to worship with you today. However you are tuning in, we're grateful that you are here with us. You know, last fall as a church, we launched into a theme called Open the Door. And the verse that kind of came to mind or helped launch this particular theme was a verse that talked about making the most out of every opportunity. And I really had to take that verse to heart during this time. And I want to encourage you to do that very same thing, that even if this does look a little different than it usually does, that we still have great opportunity to leverage what this moment is. And I want to, in that mindset of making the most of every opportunity, remind you of the online content that is available at northviewchristian.org. We've gotten some feedback from some of you guys, and we've heard that we needed to make it a little bit simpler for you to be able to navigate and find your way around around the site. So when you get onto our front page, you'll notice that there's 3 big buttons. One that'll take you to a weekly re-air of our service. Second button will take you to all of the kids' resources that are available any given week. And the third button will give you links or take you to links to all of that week's other events, virtual events, whether Bible studies, men's, women's, anything like that. We've put it all in one spot so you can navigate it simply. And I know that this disruption has changed some schedule stuff, but make the most of the opportunity. Not just this sermon series is on the website, but all the past sermon series that we have are available as well that you can watch or listen to. Take advantage of this time. There's some great online content there to be absorbed. Secondly, I want to remind you that this is a great opportunity to love your neighbor, to love your family, to love those who are around you. So don't forget, in the midst of your interruptions, to call people, to text people, to find ways to serve people, to check in on others, and to see if there's any way that you can help. The more that we do that for one another, the more we live in that Christ-centered way, the better all of us are going to be as we go through this time. Lastly, I want to say a word about generosity, because that's another opportunity that we have. And I was reminded this week of a verse in the book of 2 Corinthians. And there's this particular church, the Macedonian church, that the Apostle Paul speaks to. And he talks about how in the midst of extreme trial, in fact, this is verse 2, he says, in the midst of extreme trial, severe trial, their overflowing joy and their extreme poverty actually welled up in rich generosity. He says that I testify that they gave as much as they were able, even beyond their ability. Entirely on their own, they pleaded with us for the privilege of sharing in this service to the saints. It says that they even went beyond what we expected, that they gave themselves first to the Lord and then to the ministry to the saints. I want to say today thank you to so many of you who are continuing to make generosity a priority during this time. Now, as always, you can do online giving at northviewchristian.org/give. You can do it also through our app. You can even text in. You can mail checks in physically. There's a lot of ways to do it. And church, you guys are continuing to do so. And I want to say that what has amazed me and encouraged me, one of the things it has during this time, is that in this extreme trial, how you all have continued to partner with us and have continued to push forward in this area of generosity. And that out of this extreme trial, so much is still continuing good to happen because of how you're responding to the Lord's call in your life. So keep it up. It's super inspiring and encouraging. We're going to dive back into worship now in just a moment. But let me say a word of prayer before we do. Heavenly Father, we thank you for today. And we thank you for this opportunity to gather. And we want to make the most of today, God. We want to shape our hearts and position our hearts in such a way that we're ready to receive what you would have for us. We are grateful that today is the day that you have made. And we want to worship you in it. So Lord, we give our hearts to you. We give our voices to you. We give our lives to you. And it's in your name that we pray. Amen.
Would welcome me. I was lost, but he brought me. Oh, his love for me. Oh, his love for me. Who the sun sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, ransom me, his grace runs deep. While
You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. Oh, it's love so undeniable. I can hardly speak. Peace so unexplainable. I can hardly think as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still into love. Love, love, you're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am.
There was a hunter in the woods, and he didn't notice that a bear was coming up on him until it was almost too late. And so the hunter, he gets up and he starts running away as fast as he can, but, you know, bears are fast. And so he's running, but then he trips and he falls down. And this bear, he's getting close and close and close until the bear is getting right up in his face, and he could feel the breath of air from the bear's mouth. And so he says a prayer at the last minute, and he says, Jesus, please make this bear a Christian. And at that very moment, the bear stands up and he folds his hands and he says, Dear Lord, thank you for the meal that you've given me today. My daughter's into jokes right now, and that's one that's been told around our house. But we're in this series called Uncomfortably Close, right? Now, we all have our personal space bubbles, and mine is a little bit bigger than most people's. I don't like people touching me. I don't like people crowding up around me. And so one of the good things about this COVID-19 thing is that Sean Wilson and Guy Rosine, two guys on our staff that do like to get close, and they want to hug on me and stuff, and I hate it. And right now, they're staying away from me, and they are not touching me. I love it. Now, last week, Nathan talked about the story of Matthew and how Jesus came in and got real close with Matthew, the tax collector, and he changed his life. Well, today, the story is a little different because someone else gets into Jesus' face and gets uncomfortably close to Jesus and his disciples. And the whole story is set up with the disciples in crisis. And their day was going fine. It was going great. But within a few hours, their whole lives are changed, literally overnight. Jesus and the disciples, they were teaching, and they get in a boat and they cross over the Sea of Galilee. And literally overnight, in just those few hours, their whole lives changed. They thought that they were going to die, not once, but twice. And have you ever been there where everything is going fine, but in the blink of an eye, everything changes? See, what happens when crisis hits and you're not prepared? What happens when we don't have answers, when we don't have the strength to get through? What happens when things start to go south real fast? Well, the answer is here in this story. And it starts in Mark chapter 4, where we said that the disciples and Jesus, they get in this boat, they're crossing the Sea of Galilee, but then this furious squall, it calls it, right? This giant storm just builds out of nowhere real quick. And this lake, the Sea of Galilee, is known for that because of a few things. Number one, the Sea of Galilee is pretty shallow, as lakes go, and so the water gets to sloshing around a little bit easier. Well, the other thing is this, that on one side of the lake, you've got these high cliffs that lead to the desert. So you got cool, dry air up high. And on the other side of the lake, you've got the lowlands, right? Where it's warm, moist Mediterranean air, right? So it's coming in, you got this, and heat wants to rise, and so it gets these furious squalls real quick. Well, they think they're going to die. The water's coming in over the boat. They think they're going to die. They think they're going to drown. And they wake Jesus up, and Jesus, he calms the storm. He rebukes the winds and the waves, tells them to be quiet, like a parent would tell a child, be quiet, and then it's just calm and quiet. And the disciples are completely shocked because no mere man could do that. And then it ends like this in chapter 4, verse 41. They were terrified and asked each other, "Who is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him." Now, that's not the first time a similar question about Jesus had been asked, because it links back to Mark 1:27, when Jesus he's having church, he's preaching in church, and then all of a sudden you got this dude that's demon-possessed stand up in the church service and start saying all kinds of crazy stuff. Now everybody's tuned into Jesus. He's saying things that nobody's ever heard before. He's preaching, and then this guy stands up and he starts talking. And Jesus drives this demon out of this guy with just a word. And then they say in Mark chapter 1, verse 27, the people were all so amazed that they asked each other, "What is this? What is this?" Now we're back in Mark chapter 4 when he calms the storm, and it says, "Who is this?" They're starting to get a glimpse that Jesus is no mere man. Who is this guy, really? Now, if you thought that Mark chapter 4 was wild, buckle up, because Mark chapter 5 gets really crazy. Look in verse 1. It said, they went across the lake to the region of the Gerasenes. Now, that's important because we already know that the sun has set. It's at nighttime. We know that from chapter 4. So it's the time of day is night, and now they're going across the lake. What does that mean, right? That means that they're leaving their country. They're going across the border to Gentile territory. Now, they're comfortable in their own country. We all are, right? But now they're crossing the border and going to a country that they're not as comfortable with. So they're already kind of on edge, right? Well, then it says this. When Jesus got out of the boat, a man with an impure spirit came from the tombs to meet him. Yeah, you got another demon-possessed man right here. And it says that he came from the tombs, right? So they land their boat in the middle of the night in Gentile territory in a graveyard. And so this guy comes towards them. This man lived in the tombs, right? This man lived in the tombs. That's weird, right? We don't like to go to the graveyard in the middle of the day, much less in the middle of the night, right? And this guy lives there. He lives in the tombs. Now, check this guy out. He had often been chained this man lived in the tombs, and no one could bind him anymore, not even with a chain. For he had often been chained hand and foot, and he tore the chains apart and broke the irons on his feet. No one was strong enough to subdue him. He tore the chains apart. This guy was unnaturally strong, right? Now, my wife, she makes fun of me for my neck, right? She says my neck is way too big for my body, and she even calls me the neck, right? I used to do this thing where I would wrap duct tape around my neck as tight as I could, and I would rip it. I'd flex my neck, right? And I'd rip the duct tape off of my neck, right? Well, we're not talking about ripping duct tape off. We're talking about busting chains. This guy is strong. Well, check it out. Night and day, among the tombs and in the hills, he would cry out and he would cut himself with stones. This guy, he's all bloody, he's all cut up, right? Now, we also learn from Luke, who also tells this story, that this guy was naked, right? He doesn't even have clothes on, right? Now, I don't know about you, but my personal bubble gets bigger whenever you're naked. So stay farther away from me, right? And then Matthew, who also tells this story, he says that there isn't just one guy, there's two guys, right? Now, Mark, he's just focusing on the main guy here, but we know that there are two guys here. Look in verse 6. When he saw Jesus from a distance, he ran and fell on his knees in front of him. So now you got this guy, this naked, bloody, cut up guy, demon-possessed guy. He's sprinting towards Jesus and the disciples. Man, this is getting uncomfortably close, right? And then in verse 7, he shouted at the top of his voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? In God's name, don't torture me." For Jesus had said to him, "Come out of this man, you impure spirit." Like he's shouting at the top of his lungs, right in front of Jesus. Dude, calm down, right? You ever had somebody just scream in your face? It's not pleasant. It reminds me of this TikTok. I don't know if you've seen it, where these guys, it's a thing where there's this song that Shakira does, and they're on the escalator behind other people, unsuspecting people, and they're dancing to this song. They're doing these moves, but nobody notices because these guys are behind them. And then at one point in the song, they just start screaming the lyrics, and it scares people. Check this out.
Oh, baby, when you talk like that, you make a woman go mad. So be wise and keep on reading the signs on my body.
So now look in verse 9. Then Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" And he says, "My name is Legion," he replied, "for we are many." And he begged Jesus again and again not to send them out of the area. Legion. That word, it means, it's a troop number of 5,000 troops. Were there 5,000 demons in these guys? I don't know, but there's probably a lot, right? Maybe there was. Well, look at verse 11. A large herd of pigs was feeding on the nearby hillside. The demons begged Jesus, "Send us among the pigs, allow us to go into them." He gave them permission, and the impure spirits came out and went into the pigs. The herd, about 2,000 in number, rushed down the steep bank into the lake where they drowned. 2,000 pigs. Now, pigs, for a Jewish person, they're deemed unclean. You're not even supposed to touch these. You're not supposed to even be around them. Now, at what point do you, as the disciple, right? You're there, you're with Jesus, you get out of the boat and you see this scene. At what point do you get back in the boat and start rowing back home, right? I mean, this is quite a list. Check this out. You got, this happens in the middle of the night. And you're in Gentile territory. You've got two guys that are unnaturally strong. They're all bloody and they're naked. They're possessed by thousands of demons, and they are sprinting towards you. They're screaming at the top of their lungs. And then you've got also 2,000 suicidal pigs. This is what you're pulling up to the beach to see. At what point are you just getting out of Dodge, right? Are you someone who is fight or flight? When you get scared, what happens, right? I will never forget what Brian Hoovler did to me at CIY one year. In California, I had a youth group there, and we went to CIY, and Brian Hoovler was one of my students, and I had put, I think he was in the shower or something, and I think I dumped ice water on him or something. I don't know. I did something to him, and he wanted to get me back. So he waits. He lets it pass for a day or two, but then later he sneaks into my room, and he gets into my closet at night before I get in there to go to bed. He's standing there in the closet for over an hour, just waiting for me to get in there. I got in there super late. It was midnight, at least midnight, maybe even 1 o'clock by the time I got in there. I was rooming by myself, and so I remember coming into my room. That day at CIY had been especially awesome. A lot of life transformation, students giving their lives to God, rededicating their lives, things like that. And I remember lying on my bed, face up towards the ceiling, just looking at the ceiling, eyes open, and just replaying the day because it had been just so awesome. Well, Brian starts to make his move. He wants to scare me real bad. And so what he does is as slow as he possibly can, he begins to open the closet door real slow. And he eventually gets it open, and then he starts to step as carefully as he can out of the closet door. Now it is pitch black in there. And so he's walking towards me. And I'm just sitting there thinking about the day, just thanking God for what happened, you know. And he gets over there close to my bed, and he's ready to grab me and scare me, right? When I notice, I mean, it's pitch black in there, but I can start to notice a shadowy figure starting to reach towards me in the dark when I thought I was alone. And so I freaked, man. And so I threw up my covers, and I grabbed him. I slammed him against the cinder block wall, and I'm ready to punch. I'm not thinking. I'm just reacting, man. And I'm about ready to punch him in the face, and just, I don't know what to do, right? And he starts screaming, "It's me, Brian, it's me." He did what he wanted to do. He scared me. That's probably the most scared I've ever been, right? Well, this is the scene that the disciples come into. They're walking into a scene that is the scariest thing that they've ever seen. This is the biggest crisis that they've ever been in. And just a few hours ago, everything was fine. Now look in verse 14. It says this: "Those tending the pigs ran off." I do not blame them. "And reported this to the town and the countryside, and all the people went out to see what had happened. When they came to Jesus, they saw the man who was been possessed by the legion of demons sitting there, dressed and in his right mind. And they were what? They were afraid." See, here it is again. People are afraid of Jesus. Why? Why are they afraid? Because when his power is on full display, it's a terrifying thing, right? I am doing some work at my house right now, and I have to do some electrical work, and so I'm adding breakers into the breaker box. And so whenever you take off the panel cover, you start to run wires. Now, here it is. I took a picture of it, and I have to bring these wires in from the top here, and everything's fine. You can turn off this switch right there, and all this goes dead. It's not hot. You can touch it. It's no big deal. But you cannot switch off these two lines right here. Those are hot all the time. They're coming from the pole. And so if you touch right there or right there, your goose is cooked, okay? So I'm running this wire and I'm sweating. I'm literally sweating. My heart is racing. I'm super aware of what's going on. And so you're just trying not to touch right there or right there, because the power that has, it can end it for you real quick. Well, they see Jesus' power on full display, and they know that it's a terrifying thing. He is so much bigger than they thought that he was. Now, this story has a cool ending. Jesus, he drives out all those demons from these guys, and Jesus is getting back in the boat, and the disciples, and they're leaving. They're going to go back across. And the guy, he wants to go with Jesus, obviously, right? Number one, there's nothing for him there, right? Everybody knows him as the guy that was, this crazy guy that was living out in the tombs. He didn't want that life anymore. And number two, he just wanted to be with Jesus, right? That Jesus had changed him. And so I can completely understand that. And then look at what Jesus says in verse 19. Jesus did not let him. But he said, go home to your own people and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy on you. So the man went away and began to tell in the Decapolis, all the towns there, how much Jesus had done for him. And all the people were amazed. Now, the next time Jesus does come back into that region, he is well received. And Jesus even does a big miracle of feeding 4,000 people. And a lot of us wonder if it's due to this guy going and telling all the people about Jesus. Right? See, Christ has a way of getting uncomfortably close with all of us at some point. We know very good and well right now, health crisis can happen. Health crisis happens to every single one of us at some point. And many times it happens in the blink of an eye. We thought everything was fine or things were fine, and then all of a sudden it changes. Financial crisis, right? Family crisis. Our marriage goes through rough patches sometimes, right? And maybe yours is in a rough spot right now, rougher than it's ever been before, and you're not really speaking to each other. You're sleeping apart from each other, and really the only way you are talking to each other is through texting. Maybe you're having a hard time with your kids. Maybe you're really struggling with how to get across to them, or they're really struggling with how they're responding to you. Maybe the students are having troubles with all this e-learning, and maybe they're not responding well to that, and their grades are suffering right now. Or maybe the worst thing that could happen of all is that the Wi-Fi goes out and we cannot watch the Tiger King, right? But crisis has a way of getting to all of us, and sometimes it happens in the blink of an eye. Well, here's the deal. When all this happens, and as scary as it was, and the crisis as big as it was, Jesus doesn't flinch. Now, I would be scared. I am going to flinch in that moment. But Jesus doesn't flinch. Jesus is the most powerful being in the whole universe. It's impossible for him to be scared. I mean, if an ant walked across my desk and started raising his fist and saying that he's going to hurt me real bad, I'm not going to be intimidated. Well, your biggest crisis is an ant on Jesus' desk. And here's the good news, that Jesus is on our side. There is story after story after story of Jesus walking into a bad situation and bringing good out of it. See, crisis can't get uncomfortably close. It can get real close to us, but here's the truth. Jesus is in control. Don't get caught fearing the wrong thing. My prayer is that we will return to trusting fully and completely in Jesus. 2 questions shape everything for us. The first one is this: do you believe that Jesus is truly in control? Do you believe that? And the second question is this: do you believe that Jesus truly loves you? Because the answer to those 2 questions will shape what we trust and what we fear. Trust in Jesus. And maybe at the end of it, you'll be telling people of how much Jesus has done for you, and people will be amazed.
Walking around the walls I thought by now they'd fall, but you have never failed me yet. Waiting for change to come, knowing the battle's won, for you have never failed me yet. Your promise still stands, great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands, this is my confidence, you never fail me, yeah. I know the night won't last, your word will come to pass. My heart will sing your praise again. Jesus, you're still enough. Keep me within your love. My heart will sing your praise again. Your promise still stands, great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands, this is my confidence, you never fail. Your promise still stands, great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands, this is my confidence, you never fail me yet. Never fail me yet. I see you move the mountains, and I believe. I see you do it again. You made a way where there was no way, and I believe. I see you do it again. I see you move the mountains, and I believe. I see you do it again. You made a way when there was no way, and I believe. I see you do it again. I see you move the mountains, and I believe. I see you do it again. You made a way when there was no way, and I believe. I see you do it again. I see you do it again. I see you do it again. Your promise still stands, great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands, this is my confidence.
that song has been on my quarantine playlist. I remember hearing that again right when we first had to close doors down around here and thinking that that song had taken on a whole different meaning for me. And I'm kind of holding on to that hope that God's going to do something big again and that we're going to watch Him move in our lives, in our country, even in our world in a big, big way. We read from our story today that Brian shared with in Mark chapter 5 that God did something incredible to this Gerasene demoniac, and I believe that He can do that kind of work again in your life and in my life. And communion is a time when we get to remember that. It's a time when we get to remember that God is a God who doesn't just act once, but He is a God who continues to work and He continues to do great things. We do get a chance to look back at a specific moment in history when He did something that no one could have seen coming, that changed the trajectory of life for everybody on this earth forever. When Jesus gave His life on the cross, He forgave us of our sins. He changed our destiny. And communion is a moment that we celebrate every week together where we're reminded of that. And we're reminded of that great work that He can do in our lives and how He can change us and transform us. And for me, it's a time when I often reflect personally on the work that He has done in my heart and in my life. I was reflecting as Brian was preaching on that Mark 5 passage in verse 19 where the guy who was healed wants to go with Jesus, and instead he says in verse 19, he says, "Go home to your people and tell them how much the Lord has done, how He's had mercy on you, and what great things He's done." And you know, communion is a chance for us to proclaim. It's a chance for us to proclaim not just that Christ has died on the cross, that He's been risen from the dead. That's part of what communion is about, but it's also a chance for us to proclaim what He's done in our lives. You know, maybe if you're watching this with some people together right now in your living room, it would be worth doing that you spend a little bit of time before you take communion talking about what are the great things that God has done in my life? What are the great things He's done in our life? Give us a chance to give testimony and to proclaim the good things that He's done. As Brian noted, that had a transformational impact on the region that he lived in, just telling people about the good things that God has done. So as we go to communion, as we wrap up this service, let's just dwell on the goodness and the richness of God's love, the cross, the death, burial, and the resurrection, and how that change has made a difference in my life, and how we can share that change with the world that's around us.